Hello guys, these days Russia experiences tremendous problems with their airlines, real collapse with mobile internet, with various banking systems and applications that don't work and cause troubles to millions of Russians who clearly understand that everything did not go according to Putin's plan. Because I am sure when the Kremlin dictator planned his blitzkrieg, he imagined he would celebrate this 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War as a victor, as a gatherer of the Russian lands. But he failed, and now we all see how vulnerable, how totally unprotected Russia is, how weak this empire on the brink of its collapse. Russians have a very raw and very distorted image of victory in the Second World War. Today we honor millions of people who come from different nations and whose heroism and sacrifice helped us defeat the evil during the Second World War. And today we need to remember how important it is to finish the evil, to bring justice, because honestly, a great part of the world after the victory in the Second World War remained behind the Iron Curtain. And I am one of these people whose family, whose generation suffered greatly during this decade under another communist totalitarian regime. Let's discuss what is happening now in Russia as they fail to prepare properly for a Moscow parade. Perhaps more to come tomorrow. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, that is the only working peace plan, subscribe, we discuss all of that on the channel. Yesterday, we have discussed this tremendous collapse of Russian airlines, and I may return back to the topic in the second half of the video. But let's start with other problems that Russia experiences and is unable to hide from the global audience. Number one, I love the article in The Economist where they actually compared a number of armored vehicles, tanks, aircraft that Russia was able to demonstrate during this very raw and very aggressive parades in Moscow. Once again, Russia has a very distorted, evil understanding of victory. But even with all the efforts, with all the desire to show that Russia has the second strongest army in Russia after the Ukrainian armed forces in Kursk and Belgorod, they were not able to bring all what they want. Because, and I love this phrase, in this cumulative equipment losses, Russia is way better than Ukraine. They lose a lot of tanks, a lot of armored vehicles, and each year they have fewer and fewer things that they can put on display. I am sure they actually borrow some tanks and some planes from countries like Kazakhstan or Belarus to simply show off. And there are rumors, I hope they will be confirmed during the next days, that some Ukrainian drones successfully landed on some Russian aircraft that were preparing for a parade. And after a brief wave of explosions, Russians were not able to demonstrate the leftovers. But definitely, I love this headline that Economist uses because they say that right now, during this last year, this year, Russian victory parades actually demonstrate the weakness, not the strengths as Putin wanted, because it's not difficult to simply compare the photos. And look what they were able to show in 2021 and what they can demonstrate in 2025. Tomorrow we will see more, I'm sure, but this is definitely not a sign of strength, same as Russia's vulnerability and we may say total absence of air defense, because how else can you explain this constant destructions of vital for the Russian economy and Russian army objects? I sure like this, But this is also a proof to those who still doubt Russia can and will be defeated. Like it if you like the plan, and please share these videos if you share my opinion. There are tons of videos, tons of photos where Russians are stuck in various tunnels, highways, because mobile internet stopped working since, I guess, the 7th of May. In Russia, they never warn people about the potential troubles. People come to accept that. That's the way of Russian life. And what is interesting, many people were totally unprepared, and it resulted in huge traffic jams, in a lot of dissatisfied people. And once again, I'm sure that hundreds of thousands of these people, they discuss the failure of Putin's special military operation, not the success. It is all because they had to turn off the work of the mobile internet in Moscow as they prepare to operate, which is another proof they cannot control their skies. They cannot control their borders in Belgorod and Kursk, and they cannot control their skies. And that's why they need to turn off mobile internet, a lot of banking applications that are not working. This is not even Ukrainian interference. This is Russian fear that makes them turn off vital for a modern person technologies just because they don't control their skies. Guys, did you imagine something similar was possible when everyone was sure that Ukraine will collapse in 3 days? Here we are, 3 years after, paralyzing Russian skies. These news about their airlines canceling the flights are actually very important. Today, Turkey canceled all the flights to Russia. In Ukraine, we don't have aviation, like civilian aviation, during these 3 years, all because of Russian missiles and constant Russian attacks. But let's be realistic, I'm not exaggerating. Russians do not have normal aviation anymore too. First of all, because very few countries continue flying to Russia. Second, because sanctions work here. Russia is desperate to get some details to be able to maintain the leftovers of their aircraft, but it's very difficult. If you remember, one of the very first sanctions that Russia wanted to be lifted were about Aeroflot, their ability to buy something for the planes. Any sane person that cares about his or her life would not agree to fly in Russian planes, because they did not have normal maintenance for like 3-4 years. And what they do, they typically take details from older ones, bring them to new ones. Let me know in the comments below, would you agree to fly Russian airlines, even not before the 9th of May parade, but just like in general? So sanctions, lots of countries that don't fly, and now attacks. Constant attacks on Russian military objects, but this means Russian skies are full of Ukrainian drones, are full of things that are not good for flying. That is why Turkey canceled the flights today. This is huge. We've witnessed a number of tragedies, as with Azerbaijani airlines, and that is a result of Russian negligence too, because they keep believing they are strong. They keep relying on the Russian air defense that does not work and does not protect their oil refineries, their arsenals, their military air bases, and is also dangerous for aviation. Once again, they are lucky that Ukrainians are kind people and care about the civilian lives, but flying is dangerous because Russia is a war zone. There are dozens of Russian regions that are a war zone. Two desperate so-called leaders, Fico and Vucic, they look like a cartoon, characters for me, a bad cartoon characters for me. They desperately needed to reach Moscow, perhaps because they need money, Russian money, bloody money, dirty money, and they traveled really hard they had to make like around the world trip because normal countries closed their airspace and it was dangerous to fly above Russia, and it took them like ages to get to Moscow. We will see. Maybe they want to see Ukrainian drones on the Red Square. Maybe they are hunting for emotions, and well, I'm sure they can get that. And of course, for those of you who hoped that these 3 days or 30 days can bring peace and ceasefire, no, because just today Russia dropped 100 bombs on Sumy region. Just think about that. And they keep pretending they wanted the ceasefire for a victory day. I am sorry, this is not the right time until Russia is defeated. And I'm sure that Ukraine will use this time to keep demilitarizing the Russian Federation. Please, those of you who want to know more about the toxic propaganda and myths that Russia uses to lie to us about the Second World War, watch my interview with Hanna Hopko, who is a great Ukrainian foreign policy expert and just a very good person. Here I connect the video. And subscribe to my new channel, Anna Danilchuk, where I share more of my everyday civilian experience. And always let me know in the comments below what are the other topics you'd love me to cover on the channel. We have a new Pope, and he is American, but no worries, he is not Trump. And I like the name that he took, Leo. I'm sure soon we will learn more about his stance on Ukraine, Russia, and all these very, very, very dangerous things that are happening around the world. Why? Because unpunished evil grows. But we are ready to punish the evil and to defeat Moscow. Share the videos if you agree. Remember to follow me on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Discord, and Threads. Also, check the link to our merch shop where there are lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!